Hey, what's up, reefers? If you're going to be in the southeast Michigan area this Sunday, December 10th, come check out the Sterling Heights Frag Swap. There's going to be a lot of awesome vendors there like Cherry Corals and Detroit Reef Club, and even I, Reefer Matt, will have a table there. I can't wait to see you from noon to 4. Come check it out. Hey, what's up, reefers? Reefer Matt here. Thought I'd do a video on SPS care. In front of you is the 75-gallon SPS tank. This is a marine land tank, so it's not nothing special or anything. I got it from PetSmart, I believe, as a kit about 5 years ago. I want to talk about the coral in here and some of their care requirements. All the coral in here are SPS, and they all like lower nutrient levels. Usually around 10 or under for nitrates, and phosphates 0.06 or under. However, you can go higher, and I do in this tank. That's why I think my colors pop out so much. My nitrates in this tank are about 25, and my phosphates are about 0.06 ppm. So you can just take that with what you may and decide for your tank. As you can see, though, there's no algae problem in this tank with those levels, because I believe that the coral are absorbing a lot of that as well. So let's talk about some of the coral and what their care requirements are. So this guy over here is green slimer acropora. And if you're looking to get into acropora, this is the one that you want to start with. These guys are in my opinion, the easiest acropora, and they're pretty cool too. You can see it looks pretty cool. The polyps are all out, and it's really bright and colorful. The reason why they call it green slimer is when you frag it, it slimes a lot, and it's pretty difficult to actually glue it on a frag plug right away. So that's why it's called green slimer. And these guys are less picky about light and flow and everything. But if you give them the same care requirements as other acropora, then they'll do just great in that too. But they're not as they're more forgiving than other acropora. Say like this Walt Disney tenuous right here. This is my most picky coral in the tank. This one will let me know if I have a problem. It'll actually start to bleach out. And talking about the tenuous, they like higher light and higher flow. So on this spot right here, the par is about 300. It's anywhere from 250 to 300 around this top range of the tank. And in that spot, it's directly underneath a light, underneath that Kessel right there. So that's about 300 par, and that's not dialed up all the way either. That's just where this coral likes to be. And if I wanted to, I could slowly increase the par to get more color out of it. But I'm happy with where it's at right now, and it seems happy to me as well. So I'm not going to mess with the par too much more. Underneath it here is Montipora setosa. That's a cool Montipora. As you can see, it's got a unique growth pattern. Kind of grows like stalactites or stalagmites. I can't remember which one, in a cave. Those things that grow up from the floor. So that's a pretty cool coral. It's a beginner-friendly SPS coral as well. If you're looking to get into SPS for the first time, and your nutrient levels aren't quite what you want them to be, this would be a coral to start with before you start with acropora. As well as all these guys. This whole tank, as a matter of fact, started off as my challenge to start with SPS. And so I put a lot of easy SPS in here to start with, and I just slowly added a few acropora over the years, and now it's pretty much what you see is what you get. I'm not really adding any more to it. So moving on here, we have Leptocerus right here in the back. That one encrusts, and it's a pretty aggressive coral too. You can see what it's doing to this Jedi Mind Trick Montipora here. See if I can zoom in on that. It's actually attacking it from one side, and this green Pavona is also attacking it from the other side. So pretty soon, this green Pavona and this Leptocerus are going to touch, and they'll just kind of have a stalemate there in the middle. Over here, we have more Leptocerus. This is 24K Leptocerus. And as you can see, it's kind of just having a little stalemate here with the Pavona. So they're kind of just touching, and they're just not, one's not killing the other one. Right here, we have some green Pocillopora. Some people say this is the Xenia of SPS. That's sort of true. It's not quite as invasive, but it will grow in other spots. When I first got it, I thought it died because it did a polyp bailout, And it just grew in other spots. Like I didn't put it there, it grew there. There's some in the back there you can kind of see underneath that acro that ain't doing so well there. There's also a little spot of it popping up right there. So it will start to grow in different spots. And also, let me take my lid back here. I'll show you this. This is pretty cool. It'll grow like almost like GSP. See that? That's also Passalipora growing on my glass. I just can't, you know, scrape it off. I think that's kind of cool to have Passalipora on the glass. So yeah, you just gotta watch it and trim it back as it grows out, because it's sort of aggressive too. So it'll sting other corals. This Acropora here, as you can see, is sort of touching, but they're not creating a problem. They're kind of having a stalemate there too. So with Passalipora, just know that it can pop up in other spots, and it probably will. But you can always just get some cutters or something and cut it off the rock if you don't want it in a certain spot. I usually let it grow out a little bit and then I'll frag it back. So here's some more Montipora down here. This is pretty similar care requirements to the Jedi Mind Trick. And I like to keep these types of Montipora, I forgot what species they are, but I like to keep them in lower par, like around 150 par. Because I noticed when I tried to dial them up, you know, in the 200s and 300s, they weren't doing so good. They're kind of bleaching out. And I found that for peak coloration, at least in my tank with my flow and my nutrients, that 150 par range, even around 100 in some spots, is what it seems to like as far as coloring up and the polyps coming out and everything. And this is a beautiful coral here. This is the Cherry Corals Castaway. So this is a really cool coral too. And above it here I have some miscellaneous Acropora. These were actually part of wild colonies, I think, at least this one here in the front. And it's just kind of, you know, growing out. That's actually about a 3-year-old coral. And it's not a fast grower at all, at least in this tank. But I like it. It's starting to get different colors to it now that I got the new lights going. And in the back I got some other miscellaneous Acropora. And there's even some bird's nest tucked in there. I believe that's Serietapora. That's another one to start with if you want to get into SPS for the first time. Look for some bird's nest. That's another one that's I don't want to say bulletproof, but it's very beginner friendly. This Acropora up here, I used to have a big colony of it. This is the Jason Fox Solar Flare. This is it's not one of my original corals, but pretty close. And it used to be beautiful. It used to have the long, you know, hairy polyps to it, and it was green and pink like that. Just lately, it hasn't been doing so good, but it's still alive. So I'm just, you know, making sure everything's good on the water quality and everything else, and I'll see what happens with it. Moving on, right here is Montipora capricornis, or Monticap. As you can see, it grows in a shelving pattern like this, and it shades everything underneath it. So I got to frag some of this back because it's starting to shade the Acropora underneath there, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to frag some of this off and maybe give it away or offer it to somebody. And but you see, it comes in many different colors too. It comes in green, orange, yellow. There's a whole bunch of different colors for this coral. But it's a cool coral. It's also beginner friendly, and it kind of gives you a different dimension. Like if you look at this, it just gives you a different dimension to the tank. As far as looking at everything else, you can kind of pick it out right away. So that's why I like it. Even if you put it low, it's still going to scroll usually, and it's going to grow up towards the light. So just keep that in mind, not to put it above your favorite coral because it will shade it. And that looks like some kind of snail or worm there maybe that's on that, so I'll have to take care of that. But it ain't hurting anything. I think it's a vermitid snail is what that is. So I got the big ones in this tank. Here's one right there. They don't really hurt anything. They're pretty cool. Here is another Acropora. This is also a wild import. This was just a little frag when I got it. And I put it over here, and it's starting to get its color back. It is supposed to be purple with green polyps. Like actually this over here is part of it as well, because it used to be over here. And then I put it in the frag tank, and then I put it back. Because it was getting so big it was shading this coral here. So now it's back over here and it's starting to get its color back, so that's nice. So yeah, with SPS coral, you just got to watch your parameters a lot more closely, especially your alkalinity. And this tank right here, daily, it uses about 1 DKH of alkalinity a day. So if for some reason I run out, and because I do have to dose this tank, the alk will drop pretty quick, and then the coral will not be happy. So just keep in mind with an SPS tank, or if you have a mixed tank with SPS in it, you're going to want to keep track of your alkalinity, your calcium, and your magnesium. So, and also they like higher flow. There's a big gyre back there. And I got one right there. So they like lots of flow and lots of light. So just not so much that you're blowing the polyps off the coral, but they really like a lot of flow. I don't know if you can kind of see, you can kind of see how much flow I got going on in there. But I got a lot of flow in this tank. And then lots of light coverage too. I had to add this Reef Bright fixture because I was getting a lot of shading from the Kessels because the coral were getting so big. As you can see, they were starting to get shading on the bottom underneath them. So that Reef Bright fixture did the trick for this tank. But starting out, you won't need something so elaborate because you're going to start off with little frags more than likely. So other lights will get you by for a while. And that's what I did. I just saved up over, last 4 to 5 years, and this is sort of, today the end result. So SPS corals are not impossible. These are all pretty much, like I said, beginner friendly, except with the exception of a few acropora in here. But I do suggest getting aquaculture coral and not wild caught, because you'll have a much better chance of success because of that, especially wild caught acros, because they tend to have what's called vapid tissue necrosis, and they just don't like going from one tank to another, so they don't have a good survivability rate most of the time. So if you're just starting off in SPS, these are some beginner friendly coral that you may want to consider getting. I'm Reefer Matt. Thank you for watching, and happy reefing.